What's going on, guys? This is your boy NarikChase, and in this video, I wanted to talk about ideas, 5 interesting ideas for Resident Evil 5 Remake. Now, this will be video one of two. Two will be me going down the Reddit thread of ideas, and maybe actually three, but we'll talk about that later. Sorry for the mess. This is kind of like the office / storage room, so it's always messy and stuff. But having said that, let's go ahead and get into. Oh, not to mention I got my old chair, so all the squeaking and stuff. That's what that is. So having said that, guys, let's go ahead and dive into this. Now, I typed it into Google, and I was like, some interesting ideas for Resident Evil 5 Remake. And they, upon initial, there are 5 that came up. And let's see what those ideas are, and I'll give you my thoughts. Okay, story revisions. The story could be. Wait, should I talk about the story itself? I don't know. For those who don't know, quick backstory: Resident Evil, one of my favorite game franchises of all time. Resident Evil 5 follows Chris Redfield and Sheva Alomar as a biohazard has officially kicked off in a small town named Kanjuju in Africa. It's fictional. So we got our Resident Evil bits of action, horror, and gross mutations, and one of our favorite villains coming back to the scene, Albert Wesker. It's 2 players, a lot of action, pretty fun. But that it could have been done better in some aspects. Having said that, let's go down to it. Story revisions. The story could be reworked to make sense with the focus on the motivations of the villains and the overall narrative. This could involve revisiting the Ouroboros virus and Wesker's plans for Ubermishk. Okay, now in the story, of course, the big bad is Albert Wesker. And along with him is a mind-controlled Jill Valentine. There's this arms dealer guy, I can't remember his freaking name right now because he was just that relevant to the story. And this organization called Tricell, led by this one woman. I can't remember her name either because she really didn't have too much of a spotlight of herself in the story. But the overall thing about the Ouroboros virus is actually pretty cool, but like I said, I think it wasn't emphasized enough. Like, you fight Ouroboros 3 times in the story, and this is weird mutating creature that uses dead bodies as kind of like hosts to form itself. Really cool fights, actually, but I don't think that the game itself, like the Ouroboros itself, I don't think was a central. Like, if it was a new virus, like how the T virus is like the main threat in the original games, it'd be different. Kind of like the G virus in Resident Evil 2, and then you got that one virus, the aquatic virus in Revelations, something like that. Then, like, okay, most of the creatures, I guess it is. I'm not sure. It doesn't seem like it. You fight the Ouroboros 4 times technically, but it doesn't seem like it is the biggest threat. It is a threat, but at the biggest, like, all of the creatures itself don't seem like they're infected with the Ouroboros, but. I think there should have been a bit more emphasis on the Ouroboros. As far as the villains, the arms dealer guy. Look, I'm with the whole Resident Evil 4 vibe, which becomes, if we have multiple villains, Resident Evil 4. Yes, you got one main overarching one, and then you got 2 or 3 in specific zones that you have to take out, and then they interact with you. Now, the arms dealer guy, I wish there was a bit more to his character. You don't really see that. See that. Now, in the originally in the game, there is a guy that's calling down the executioner, and you think he's kind of like the village leader, since he's controlling the villagers and stuff. But then he just comes out to just be a regular bad guy. But if you think about it, it's like if he was like the leader of the village, kind of like Mendez was in Resident Evil 4, ultimately they had to fight him. That would have been really cool. The arms dealer actually kind of have pulling the strings of the village would have been kind of cool, but you don't really see that either. Even the more militaristic action sequences, you don't really see him as like a complete threat. So it would have been cool to see him as like controlling some of the bad guys. Excella, that's the chick's name, who's over Tricell. A bit of her too when it comes to the more medically, like there's a part where they're on a ship, and you would think she was controlling it and controlling all of the bad guys and kind of manipulating things, but that's not really the case either. Even as a part of the facility, you would think she's kind of like manipulating it, but it's not really that. Like really, the villains are pretty in the background. Even if you look at like Resident Evil Village, if you look at Resident Evil 7, like those villains were more prominent. So I can actually, and then when it's revealed that Wesker's in the background, yes, Wesker does have a presence and stuff, but the other villains, yeah, I can see why, like put more of them into the forefront controlling things. The next one is the setting overhaul. The setting of Resident Evil 5, such as the Shanty Town, River Base, Tricell, Old Umbrella Labs, the Swamp, Tribal Village, Big Boats, and Temple Ruins, could be overhauled with new horror and action elements. This could include adding new locales like Nidipapa Village with voodoo vibe and night jungle level for added intensity. I don't know about the Nidipapa Village, but the jungle idea is really good. It's really right. Like some really cool, intense horror sequences. Lord knows what's hiding in the jungle. I'm not sure particularly all of the big cats that are in Africa. I know it's the lion. I know there's the cheetah. I know there's the panther, I want to say. Well, I don't know. Like the biggest cats are in. Some of the biggest cats are in Africa. You would think tigers, but tigers are more Asian. Are in Asia. Pretty cool differentiation. But the jungle sequence would have been absolutely badass. You're sitting here walking through the jungle and you got stuff stalking you and you hear it but you can't see it. It's too dark. Like stuff like that been really cool. My biggest problem really with almost all of the Resident Evil locations are it's not enough backtracking. Look, for those who play Resident Evil, you're backtracking. You're you're going over here to get a key, to go back this way, to go to this door, to go over here, to open this door. You're getting the password from a room you passed up 3 or 4 times. Like, it's like that. There's exploration. There's things you can find with that exploration. Like, that was one of my biggest problems with Resident Evil 5. When you're in Shantytown, it's a straight shot. This is a small town. You would think there'll be a crap ton of exploration that you could be doing, looking at finding people. Like there's one sequence early in the game. In fact, as soon as you start the game, where if you go back behind this little fruit stand, you see people, see a group of these infected abducting somebody. And you should see more scenes like that. People hiding, people getting abducted. Little notes and stuff saying what's been going on, people noticing, people changing. That's one of the things I loved about the Resident Evil 4 remake is you see notes and stuff and people are like, okay, this person, ever since this event happened, they've changed and I've been watching them change, and hey, the villagers are starting to change. You get to get that sense. Like, I would have definitely loved that, especially in Shantytown. Shantytown should have been a whole, like, hide and go seek moment where, okay, because initially after Executioner kills the spy guy, Sheva and Chris get attacked. So that should have been a continuous, and I mean continuous, like they're being hunted. Like it should have been to the point where you cannot fight. Like if you play the game, if you know how to, I guess if you play the game the first time, you probably won't be able to kill all the villagers, but it should be to a point where you cannot kill all the villagers. It should be a constant, like, running. Like, hey, we get to this building, we barricade it, they come in, we fight for a little bit, we got to move again. It's too many people. Like, it should have been that level. And even though it's kind of like that, but like it's more linear. So I would have liked a bit more backtracking. Hell, once you go to like basically once you get the games get started, there's no going back. Like there should have been a moment where after Executioner fight, the original battle, we should be able to go back to the beginning of the game, but you can't because everything gets locked off after every section. So even like the swamp area, you can go around and you can find little areas and stuff. That's pretty cool. That's the Tricell with the labs. That should have been more backtracking. That should have been more finding your way around. There's a sequence in there where you have to fight lickers. That should have been expanded upon. That also should have been like, we don't have ammunition, so maybe they got knocked out or something. They got locked up. They figured out a way out, and now they're sitting here having to sneak out of the laboratory, past lickers and stuff like that. Would have been better. Big boat. It should have been much more backtracking and stuff like that. But and the temple ruins, like I said, these are all great locations. It's just that it's too linear. So I agree with it. And then add that jungle sequence. There's no reason we shouldn't have no jungle sequence. But I guess if we're in the savannah, it wouldn't make sense. But if you think about it, you're traveling. You go to so many different locations. Yeah, you should have a jungle sequence. So I agree with that. Let's see. Gameplay mechanics. The remake could introduce new gameplay mechanics to enhance the survival horror experience. This might include more horror elements and less action, aligning with the survival horror focus of the modern Resident Evil games. Again, this is the military aspect of Resident Evil, so the lack of horror, like survival horror elements, I understand, because at this point of Resident Evil, especially with characters that are experienced with BOWs, it's going to be less survival horror because they're experienced. Survival horror usually works best to me with characters with either who are with no experience dealing with the situation. But Chris, decades at this point of kicking ass and taking names, or at least a decade, as well as Sheva, very competent. She's great. She's highly skilled, very resourceful, and so it's not going to work as a survival horror. I don't care if you take away their the weapons and stuff. It's not going to work fully because they have so much experience. That being said, there could be a bump up in more of the horror elements. One of the best sequences in the game, incredibly short, is this. It's like you're in this area and you're dealing with giant crocodiles. That a moment of characters trying to, I don't know, walk through the water with giant crocodiles in it could have, you know what I'm saying, worked in the game's favor of survival horror. The liquor sequence that's in the game. If they were to, now this is one of the times I'd be like, okay, if you take away their weapons and have them kind of sneak around, that would increase the horror element. The Ouroboros, you could say initially when it first appears, have that be like a nightmare scenario or something where they're running because they don't know what's going on. Like, there are some great moments in this game that if you dive, and hell, Resident Evil 4 Remake did an exceptionally good job of the Gigante fight, where you're in like you fight it in the original game, but it's pretty cool because in the remake there's this kind of this open area, it's got houses and stuff, and you can fight it there. And there's a moment, and this is one of the military moments I wish they would have taken away. There's a moment where Sheva and Chris are fighting these Majani on bikes and stuff, using Gatling guns and Jeeps and stuff. And then they get to an area where they have to fight a giant using the same Gatling gun on the Jeep. Well, what would have made that a better fight actually is if they were fighting this giant on foot. Maybe, and do the same thing they have with Resident Evil Remake, have the creature destroying. You can have certain shelter, but then the thing can tear the shelter down. While you're fighting the thing, Majani show up. Like that would have made for a better more horror-esque moments than more of the military one. Hell, there is a fight sequence, this giant bat. I think if they were able to divvy it up a little bit better, the giant bat, because it's a cool fight, I think that could fold more into that as well. And again, the Ouroboros fights, they could be. There is one really cool thing in the game. Or this is another interesting. There's these giant roaches in the game, and they're pretty much one hits. They get you, you're dead. Like that could have been more survival horror-esque. They kind of remind me of those invisible bug things that in Resident Evil 4. But these giant roaches, they also, I think, expel this weird dissociative gas that'll like throw you off if you're looking at it. It distorts it. Hopefully I'm not getting my games mixed up. I think it does. So, like that, what if you didn't have your weapons, but you had to deal with creatures like that? You had to avoid them. That right there absolutely would have completely killed. So there is a there is something to be said for the action, but there could have been a lot of great moments where they dialed it back. Hell, even with the ruins probably be the best sequence for survival horror. The ancient creatures that are hanging out down there that are mutated from the parasite and the viruses and stuff. Having those Majani, the ones that are like kind of like the natives infected and stuff, had them stalking you from air, since this is their place. They know like different ways to hunt you and stalk you. Like stuff like that would have been just completely badass. So now, this one I'm not sure what the hell they mean. It says modernization. The remake could be modernized to fit with the current gaming trends and expectations. This might involve updating the controls and gameplay mechanics to better suit modern consoles and gaming experiences. Now, with this one, this is what I would say. There are some things that I think will work in the game. I think that one of the mechanics that I would probably introduce is have Sheva, and now I believe in a PlayStation 3, when each one of the characters had their own weapons they couldn't share. But I think when you got it for the Xbox, I believe that you can share weapons. I think it's a good idea not to be able to share weapons. I think you take this and I take this, and we just kind of do our thing. Money too. If you get to find this money, it's your money. We don't share it collectively. I think that adds a bit of competitiveness and also a bit of strategy between two people playing the game. Who should get the healing herbs? They're not shared. Who should get these ammo? It's not shared. Who get money? It's not shared. I think that would definitely work. Limit, of course, the weapon capacity and stuff to make the game a bit more strategic. Hey, I might go in being more long range. This person might be more combat. Hey, this person might be more rapid fire weapons. This one might be more explosives. Like, I think that would completely work as well. So limit the ammo and stuff. Limit the suitcase size, because I do think at one Resident Evil kind of falls where it gets like, hey, you get the briefcase, you get every weapon. It's like, no, you don't need that. It should be still forcing you to. I guess 4 weapons should be max, but I guess that depends on how you put it in the suitcase. I'm not sure, but and then there's a thing in the game, unlimited ammo. Add different options. There are customizations to the game. I think work. You can change the theme like that. I believe they had the horror theme where everything's like black and white. You got costume design choices. Man, this game actually, now I'm talking about this, made me want to go buy Resident. I thought I had Resident Evil 5 on the guest let one of my friends borrow, but it's making me want to go play that game again because it's just so freaking fun. But I think that'll work as well. There's a lot of I guess you could say in terms of, I don't know about the modernization. I still don't know what the hell that means. But I think that'll work. Resident Evil 5 actually has some solid gameplay mechanics. I just wish there was a little tweak here and there. And lastly, let's talk about lore adjustments. The remake could also explore the lore of the Resident Evil universe, potentially revisiting the character Oswald E. Spencer and his role in the series history. As much as this game does give you some revelations about certain things, because you see how Spencer dies, you get a bit of revelations about. Well, one of the cool things it reveals is Wesker's like powers and stuff. You know, his rivalry with Jill and Chris. Like that's all pretty cool. I do wish we get to see more about Excella. More about I think the black market guy, the weapons man. I can't do it. I think he was a weapons black market. He dealt with black market weapons or something like that. I can't remember. Irvin, I think the guy's name was. He was not interested in the slightest. But like this game sets up some interesting points. Like if you think about it, okay, they're talking about the black market weapons and bio weapons and stuff like that. We don't get to see any of it. We don't get to see them watching him deal with somebody in the black market or arms dealer. We don't get to see those types of dealings. We don't get to see them dealing with any other gang. It's like basically like have an auction with a bunch of gangs. Like the executioner thing was actually pretty. For example, would have been a good way to introduce this. Say you had an auction and they're trying to, sell weapons and stuff, but then there's a spy. The spy gets caught, and then in front of all of the auctioners, the spy gets killed. You would see them watching. You'll know that okay, these are people that deal in bioweapons. As well as just like regular weapons and black market stuff like that would have been absolutely badass to expand the lore. Also, the Tricell. What is Tricell's impact on the world? We don't know from the game really because we don't really see it. It's not really talked about. Yes, they say the name, but you don't know. Hey, where was Tricell during any of the events of the other games? You don't really know much about it because the game doesn't tell you. How is Tricell and Umbrella wrapped up? How did Excella meet up with Wesker? Like that's never really opened up in the game. So it's like I wish like that mystery could have been a mystery worth solving in the game too as well. Excella, who the hell is this broad? They don't really tell you. They don't tell you nothing about her. She seems like she has. Her and Irvin got pretty much the same amount of, I guess you can say, screen time. So you don't really get to know with each one of them. And, explain more. Like, Wesker ends up taking over Jill with this, brainwashing thing. Okay. Well, why isn't that employed with other characters throughout the game? If you can brainwash people, I think you probably should be using that with other characters. You know what I'm saying? Is Excella brainwashed? Like those are interesting ideas that could have been implemented in the game and explaining more on the lore. Yes, give us more Oswald Spencer. Who is this guy? Because if you think about it, if you play the games, you don't really know who Spencer is. At least I don't. From the games that I played, they don't really dive into who Spencer is. And yes, he's one of the guys that. But I want to know more about this guy. This game kind of touches on it, and then the DLC, which is actually pretty cool. It's got some pretty cool DLC, but that's what I'm saying. With they should be fleshing out more with the story and the lore and stuff. Hell, even with Chris, what has Chris been doing since the events of Raccoon City? Should have been highlighted in the game. Sheva, even though she talks about why she became part of the BSAA and everything, a bit more of what she's seen in Africa or in her travels, expanding the lore. So there is a lot that the game does do right. And again, even with the region, how did all of this start happening? When did it start happening? So, like I say, Resident Evil 5 is just a great game. It really is. But there is a lot that's missing from it. And these are some ideas, at least that I've seen on here. And I'm going to go into detail with that Reddit thread. But guys, just let me know your thoughts. Those are 5 ideas that I pulled up. Just let me know your thoughts. Do you agree? Did you not agree? Are there some points that I missed over? Are there some points that I could have worked out a bit better? Be sure to hit that like, share, subscribe, and that notification button to get the best of what we got going on this channel. We'll definitely catch you guys later.